One thing is absolutely certain for the Kansas City Chiefs free agency plan, it has to bring back L'Jarius Sneed, along with some others today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. Chiefs Kingdom around the world. Welcome back into Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Starting here on YouTube, where you can like and sub and hit that bell so you get the notifications that you're looking for, as well as the audio platforms on Spotify and Apple, and everywhere you can get a free show. You're going to find us 5 days a week, just like you everydayers do. And we love you guys. We appreciate you being here all the time, every single day. We'll even give you some extra content on weekends, etc. There'll be more than 5 a week as it averages out, and you can get even more information on our text line at 816-357-8781. Great preview of free agency today. We touched on it yesterday. If you guys missed that show, it was related to Chris Jones and what the intentions are. Well, he's not the only big fish in the sea. We're going to talk about the free agency class here as a whole for the Kansas City Chiefs, not outsides, just the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to come back with 3 of our top picks in the second segment, and we're going to start at the very top of the list, and that is number 38, L'Jarius Sneed, who was a question mark, I think, at the beginning of the season because of his injury. And he's had a couple, and the concern there was, is he going to be able to get through this? Is he going to be able to continue to develop? And clearly, once he got past the knee injury and was into the regular season, that started. And we started to feel a little bit better. And he started to look a little bit better. And then we get about, to the bye week, and he still hasn't given up a touchdown. He's all over everybody. And then he just accelerated through the playoff process. I'm not going to count the Khalil one. I thought that was incredible. Yes, when you get to the Super Bowl, you're going to give up a couple of plays. But let's make no bones about it. L'Jarius Sneed should have been All-Pro along with Trent McDuffie. And that's actually a break for the Kansas City Chiefs in trying to bring him back, I think.
No, it absolutely is. And to be clear, you did say we're talking free agents. I also want to be clear, we're talking about guys that will be free agents this year, not looking forward to who could be there in 2025 that they could also be looking to extend. But that is also going to play into all of this conversation. Sneed is the guy. Sneed is by far the guy that you want to bring back behind Chris Jones. And that's something that they're going to have to try to get figured out. The big question to me is when you look at Sneed and you look at him being in Kansas City, can you trust that knee is going to hold out? Because it's not just last year. It's the year before he had the knee issue. He played through it. Don't get me wrong. But when you're talking about giving him huge money in a long-term deal, that becomes part of the equation.
Yeah, it certainly does. And the negotiation, we've seen this a number of times. We've covered this team for so long. If you don't know us, he's Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner, does all the stats. I guess I should point this way. All the stats for quarterbacks, analytics, as well as the capology. He runs Chiefs Corner, and you can find his content there. I'm Ryan Tracy. I run Rogue Analytics, Performance Consulting, The Athletic Matrix, NFL33.com, and RGR Football. Together, we've got a ton of look at this. And every year, we come back to one of these scenarios that come down to value versus need. And I think this is one time in probably the recent past that is a little bit of an outlier in that he is giving you the value that you deserve and that he deserves in order to get a contract, and you do have a need. Yes, they've got a great backfield of young players, but you still have to have a tandem. You have to have 3 starters in this league, to be honest. And anything that lets you walk away from a player of that caliber when you don't have an heir apparent that is ready to step in and be as good, I think still demands that attention. The question is going to be the dollars, as they always are, in getting that value back.
I'll play devil's advocate for a second, and I'll say that I agree with you that this is an outlier, and it's an outlier not just because of Sneed and because of the type of player he is. I want to be clear here. I would love to see L'Jarius Sneed continue to be in Kansas City for the next 5 years. So I want to throw that out there before I say what I'm about to say. But my devil's advocate argument would be that the cornerback is one of the deepest positions this Chiefs roster has. We didn't have Najee Johnson, who looked like he was going to be a legitimately starting corner going into this season. He was having a fantastic training camp. So you can make an argument that corner is a position where they don't have to heavily invest money. That doesn't mean that I think that that's the right argument or the right thing to do. but it is a little bit different because it's not like another situation where you don't have somebody that could come in and step up. It's not going to be the same level, obviously, but sometimes that's the reality of free agency.
It certainly is the reality. But I would counter argue there that Najee Johnson doesn't change the equation, because Najee Johnson
I'm not saying he does.
And you're going to have McDuffie on one side. You're still going to have either Joshua Williams or Jalen Watson manning the other boundary corner position. And we've seen that those are guys that are going to get attacked. They're not up to the caliber yet. I still feel that they both have plenty of upside and plenty of path to development. But that's the difference between having 5 deep and having maybe 3 deep that you're hoping someone else will come into. And then there's going to be the discussion of Shamar Connor and what his role will be going forward, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We know he can play slot as well. But
yep.
I think it's a balance. And at the end of the day, what they've done to produce this last Super Bowl roster included all these guys, including their 3 major stars that were all homegrown. So you come back to the concept of, if it's at all avoidable, and it will come down to the dollars and the market value for L'Jarius Sneed, and not getting the Pro Bowl and not getting the All-Pro helps. But if you can get that, even if you have to pay a little bit more than you want to keep your homegrown talent and keep that rolling, that's the key to roll a dynasty over, not just next season for a possible three-peat, but the season after that and 4 more after that.
It's going to be interesting because I do think that a franchise tag is possible. I'm not sure that they'll go that direction. I would have to look at the exact numbers for that. It's going to be over $20 million, but it's something that they could stomach, and it's something they could do if they can't get a deal done. We have about a month before that has to be decided, so I do think that's a possibility. I don't know how great a possibility it is. I know that they were working on something before the season started, or during the season, and I would imagine they're doing the same thing with Chris Jones. So it's all going to play a part of the bigger picture of how they're going to put the roster together for 2024.
Yeah, it all has to come together. It is a puzzle that has to fit together in a number of ways. And again, we talked about Chris Jones' situation. That probably has to be worked on as expediently as this one is. But the Chiefs have made comments that they do hope to bring them both back, and that Patrick is willing to rework his contract, which I think is a little bit to the detriment of the cap in the future. But you know more about that than I do. And when you look long-term what this deal is, eventually it's going to get torn up and rewritten. So I'm not sure of the long-term impact. But if you can keep Sneed as well as Jones, or like you said, get one of them under contract and use the franchise tag to at least buy yourself a year, I think that that's a possibility, and that is definitely the plan. But they're not alone. Who else? What is the tiering that they have to attack, and who will be allowed to go outside, see what's out there, and has a possibility coming back? All those and more are coming up next after a message from our pals here on the Locked On Podcast Network.
DoorDash went all out for game day, and DoorDash stuff from all the ads to one lucky winner: cars, snacks, and even tax software. And somehow they pulled it off. I'm a little bit bummed I didn't win, but got to hand it to them. It was one heck of a delivery. DoorDash is the all-in-one app for your everyday needs, from restaurants and groceries to flowers and gifts. So next time you're running low on dinner ideas, pet supplies, or just time, you can get so much more than you realize delivered. Didn't have a chance to hit the grocery store last weekend after all the big game commotion? Or maybe your bar cart has been mysteriously cleared out. Kind of wonder how that happened. Stock back up for the week ahead with delivery from DoorDash. Whatever watch party or anything party you've got coming up, get it delivered with DoorDash. Football season may be over, but we're in the thick of basketball games, the school year, and let's face it, winter. I can think of a million reasons daily to order DoorDash. Hop on the app and make your day a little easier. Get dinner for tonight, groceries for the week, or a consolation prize from your sad friends in San Francisco, because they definitely need it. All on DoorDash. DoorDash, your door to more. Head to the DoorDash app to get everything you need delivered.
If you want even more, you're going to be able to find us, especially tonight, premiering on the Locked On Sports Today feed. Both us and the Niners shows, they're going to be heavily rotated. So make sure you check that out. Get signed up for that. Click the subscribe over on the Locked On Sports Today. It's our 24/7 feed. You're going to get that right about 6:45 Central. Be on the outlook there as we continue to take a look at what's next. 2 big prongs here, both on the defensive side on this free agent class with the Kansas City Chiefs, but by no means is that the end of it. there's a lot of depth here on especially the defensive side of what has produced this defense that we're just coming off of another championship. And unfortunately, all the next big three, as we're prioritizing them, are on the defense. And that is Mike Danna, Drew Tranquil, and Willie Gay. In particular, we'll talk about Danna here in a minute, but I think because of two of those three players is at the linebacker level, we have to be, I think, very, very proactive in trying to assess what they do, how much of a priority that is, and what the value has to be. Because, yes, you do have Nick Bolton manning the middle, and he will continue at least one more year. We'll talk about extensions probably after the summer, as those will start to come into focus as well. And Leo Chenal just made some big plays in the Super Bowl. So you feel comfortable with the roles that they're in. But I'm not comfortable necessarily giving up on trying to get both of these guys back. If I'm Brent Veach in the front office, I'm trying to persuade them to take a deal that is obviously better than the compensation they've been on currently. Drew Tranquil just having been on a 1 year, and Willie Gay coming off of a rookie contract. But not trying to break the bank and really selling this concept of you can make history by being on a three-peat roster. We need you to do that. Come back, take a deal. We'll give you something fair and see what you can get done now without trying to test the free agent waters.
Yeah, and I think that they need to try to get both of them back. I would love to see both of those guys back. And I would also say you have to look at it from the perspective of two of the three are guys that are homegrown. I mean, you look at, Danna and Gay were both drafted in the same draft class. Those guys, same class as Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well. All those guys came in at the same time. Veach has done a great job of keeping homegrown talent here and bringing in the right guys and getting 4 or 5 hits in each draft class. And this is when it starts to show. This is when it starts to become a problem. But the Chiefs have been able to continue to draft year over year. Now you look at Danna and Tranquil and Gay, and I agree. I'd love to have both Tranquil and Gay back on the linebacking roster. I think it's going to be harder to do that than we would hope it would be. I think Tranquil is a guy that absolutely wants to be in Kansas City. He seems to love it here. And I do think that they're going to try to bring her back. And I expect it's going to be on more than a 1-year deal like what he got this year. Because it also seems like Kansas City loves him. Willie, that's a big question. Does he want to be here long-term, or does he want to be, is he going to chase after the money? And I hate saying it that way, but that's the truth of free agency. It's you're trying to get paid the most you can, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's the decision that has to be made when it comes to those two guys.
I agree with you. And I do think the positionality does play a factor here, particularly for linebackers and running backs. A second contract is most likely the best opportunity they have to get a payday that sets them up for the rest of their career and clearly their post-football life. So I won't hold anything against that. I would say specifically, though, that Willie Gay in what he brings to the table is very specific to this team. I don't know that he's plug and play for a lot of other teams. Could you put him in a 3-4 defense? I feel like you could, but I'm not 100% that the defensive coordinators around the league want to do that. And from a pass rush standpoint or a nickel coverage standpoint, he's displayed what he needs to show that he's capable, but the volume isn't there. And I find it hard to think that there's going to be a blockbuster contract out there for him, given the volume that he splits, particularly with Drew Tranquil this season. And this was really the first season where Willie was really everywhere all the time doing what he was. He was assignment of sound. He's always had a couple of mistakes or a couple of gaps in years past. This was his best season by far, in my opinion.
The contract year is always undefeated. Just saying.
Thanks, T.
Yep.
There's no way around that. So
exactly.
I'm hopeful, and maybe I'm being cautiously or not so cautiously optimistic that that will ring true, because you have to take a look at the backside as well. If they lose one of these guys, luckily they got Cam Jones some experience this year on a regular season game, and that helps. And I think Cam has the athleticism to be able to step into a role. I don't think it could be either of the roles that Drew Tranquil or Willie Gay currently fulfill, but it could be a role. I still believe that you need to be at least 5 linebackers deep in this league, and that right now would still have them coming up short. The linebacker class in this coming draft is not particularly special. I'm not optimistic about a day 3 pick that's going to be able to have any impact. So for me, I'm particularly trying to run it back with the linebackers.
And I have no problem with that. I would love to see both of them back. Like I said, I just think that it's going to be harder to get Willie back than it would be Tranquil. Tranquil is signed to be that fourth guy that was going to be coming off the bench and could fill any role. I think he's deserved a chance to actually start and be a everyday linebacker or every down linebacker to a certain extent. So that's something I think that is going to play into it as well. Then you start looking at Mike Dana. Has he been overly productive? No, but he is somebody that they absolutely trust to come in and run their system and be in the right place at the right time, set the edge for the most part. And there is a lot of value in that. The question is what is his value going to be on the open market? And I expect that he tries to test it, but maybe the Chiefs give him a deal. We'll see.
I have a tendency to think that they're probably more enamored with him than most other teams are going to be. And I see him as a foundational player because of his versatility, his experience, and his ability to not complain about, hey, you got to go play tackle this game and you can be out on the edge next week or whatever he has to do. There's no one more happy. And I remember this to this day, the day after he was drafted, Brendan Daly's face about having Mike Dana and his ability to do everything that we just said. He's come beyond, much like George Karlaftis, he's come farther, faster than I ever expected to him based on his pre-draft evaluation. And I think that's another thing that if he doesn't break the bank, and I don't think that he will, that you got to hold on to.
Well, and I agree with that. The question becomes is what do you do with the first two and how much are you spending on the first two? Because when you start talking about, and I'm not talking Tranquil and Gay, I'm saying Jones and Snead. That's what this is going to come down to. How much are you going to have to spend on Jones? How much are you going to have to spend on Snead? If you get those two guys and their contracts are cheap enough, maybe you can afford Dana. If they're not, maybe you have to circle and go a different direction. I wouldn't like it, but it is what it is. That's why it is so hard to continually build a team and so hard to compete for a three-peat because your team changes year after year and you're not able to bring guys back.
And the D-line group in particular has been such a find this year in setting up the defense. And yet there are a lot of moving parts on that defensive line. Two others are coming up on the backside of this. A little message from our friends where you might want to get around a little bit better. And if you want to get around a little bit better, maybe go a little bit further. If you ever wonder what it's like right around the next corner, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. It starts, no matter what, with the Nissan Rogue. It's perfect for city driving and getting those out-of-town escapes. It's class exclusive, Google built-in. It always has your updated assistant right there for you to call or do anything else. Gone are the days of just connecting your phone and trying to make everything work on whatever version that is. And it's built right into this dashboard with a 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The Rogue is the perfect sized or mid-sized crossover for your next adventure and is just a great accompaniment. If you want to go a little bit bigger and you want to make sure that you can get things done, go with the Pathfinder because it's back. It's one of the classics. It's one of the ones that I love. Had one when I was a young person. It has room up to 8 now with an expansive cargo capacity and advanced available 4-wheel drive. And that's the big thing. 285 horse underneath the hood, as well as 6,000 pounds of towing. You can get a lot done whether you're just going camping, hunting, or fishing. The Pathfinder is there, and it is the answer for you. So if you want to take the Nissan Rogue, the Pathfinder, or even the Armada and go to the next level, make sure you get into that big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. And we have a lot of further free agents to discuss here, so we're not going to take a ton of time on my little topic right here. But we do have to take a look at the breadth of this conversation. It is Mike Dana and Chris Jones that are top 2 picks, but there's also needs here along that defensive front. Obviously, the Charles Omenihu injury situation makes things a lot more difficult, in my opinion. But Derek Notty's a free agent, approaching 28 years old. He will be before next season. And Turk Wharton is as well. Another 2 homegrown guys, as we've talked about, that you'd like to have back if you can get the contracts low enough. But you also have to remember that you have to bolster, you have to improve the pass rush out of this group, especially with the absence of Omenihu, whether you lose Chris Jones or not. We've talked about some free agent targets, and we will do that in the coming weeks about going out and getting other teams' free agents. But it's a very compact group on the defensive tackle group in particular that they have to shore up and get, I think, multiple players back from this free agent class.
Yeah, and it would be great to have Notty back, especially at the kind of contract that he had this year. Wharton, it's going to be a question. Is he going to get an open deal on the market? The problem that Noddy has is he's not much of a pass rusher. He is a run stuffer, and that's his main role. And I'm not saying he can't get after the pass, but that's not what he does normally. So I do think that plays into this. So we'll see how that ends up turning out. Wharton, it's a big question mark whether or not he's going to be able to find a contract and whether or not the Chiefs would be willing to pay it. I would guess that he's probably going to end up elsewhere. I'd love to have him back. I'd love to be wrong, but that would be my guess. When you start looking at some of the other guys, Mike Edwards is another one that you could throw out there. Signed a cheap deal this year. It'd be great to have him back, but it's a depth piece. He's at best your fourth safety probably on the roster going forward. Because I think you're going to want to see what you can get from Jamari Conner, and I know he's played a lot of different roles. But can you continue to invest in that position is the question, because you're going to have Brian Cook back, and I actually think that they may extend Justin Reed, but that's a whole nother discussion.
That is, and that is not one for today, but I agree with you. I like the concept of Mike coming back. He was on a $3 million 1 year. I think that's perfectly fine, and I think that's doable given what they're going to be able to move around with the cap. And I would rather be deep in that secondary group than come up shallow there. So if it's affordable, I would like to see it come back. He made a couple of plays that I think were worth it. Unlike one of his other former teammates, if we flip over to the offensive side, there's no one more important, I feel, right now than Nick Allegretti. I think he would be a starter on multiple teams around the league. And Joe Thuney's injury only highlights the fact that you have to have a quality interior player as a backup on this roster. I don't know if they can get it done. Where do you stand?
I hope they can. I think he wants to be back. I think he wants to go for a three-peat. I think he loves being in Kansas City. He came back here. And I don't think somebody's going to offer him a starting position coming off an injury like he suffered in the Super Bowl. I could be wrong. We'll see. But I would love to have him back in Kansas City. Then you get into other guys like, Blake Bell. Can you bring him back? Sure. Is there value there at 33? I mean, they love what he does for that specific position, but it doesn't add a ton of value. The other questions, Jerick McKinnon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, kind of the same boat. I don't expect Clyde back. I think Clyde's going to find another job somewhere else. But Jerick could be back because he wants to be in Kansas City. He loves being here. And the question is he going to continue to play?
I hope that he is. But honestly, his comeback to get into that Super Bowl, it looked like he was fine. But it felt as though it were a little bit pronounced and a little bit rushed. I wonder if he's approaching the age where he's just like, hey, I'm going to call it a career. He'll be 32 before the season starts. That is ancient in running back language.
Yeah.
So I hope that he can come back and just be used very, very sparingly and maybe as the fourth running back.
Well, and it could be that, or it could be the fact that he was just going against his old team. I mean, there's that also plays into playing in the Super Bowl and trying to force yourself back as quick as he did. Then you get into other guys. James Winchester is another one. He's 35. I can't believe he's 35.
I know it surprised me as well.
He's a snapper. You bring him back. I don't think there's an issue. Richie James, I can't see back after the usage this year. Deion Bush, 31. If he wants to come back as a practice squad player, I guess they could do that. That would be fine. Tommy Townsend's gone. I don't think there's any way he's back. His agent.
I disagree.
His agent
is Drew Rosenhaus. I know that puts a kink in it. But I feel like, especially for this. Especially for the volume of kicks that he has to perform every year, I don't think that there's a cushier job in the league, and that probably should lead to, like, in a per punt per dollar basis, he's probably right at the top of the list already. I think they might be able to work it out.
I don't think so. I think he's going to get more money than we could even imagine. You get to Darius Harris again. Depends on what you do with the other two, but I can't see him back in Kansas City next year unless it's just a 90 guy to see if he can make the roster. And then you get into EFRAs. Blaine Gabbert's also a free agent. I expect that he'll be back. Mm-hmm. Jody Fortson, I think, will be back. He's a restricted free agent. Doesn't cost you anything. Malik Herring, Jack Cochran, Mike Caliendo, Cole Christensen, and Nazeeh Johnson are all exclusive rights free agents, so I expect all of them back. Prince Tega Wanago, I do not think will be back.
I think they value him more than we do, but I tend to agree with you there. I want to backtrack for 1 minute before we wrap up this show, folks, and make sure that you like, sub, and hit the bell right now and check out the Locked On Sports Today feed. Going back to Richie James, I know he's a year older. He's 28 at this point, and he didn't get used as much as we thought he would. I wonder if a second year in this system on a similar deal, like a 1.5, a 1 year for very low money, it isn't something they should pursue. I personally would, because I'm not sure anything is going to happen with McCole Hardman. The culmination of that Super Bowl win, despite that, I think McCole will probably get a chance to test free agency and could be back as well. They have a decision coming on some of the guys that are under contract. Again, we're not discussing that today, but I think both those guys might be in the mix in the second, third wave.
Yep, could be. A lot to talk about when it comes to free agency in this class and how they're building the roster for 2024 that we'll be getting into after we do a deeper dive onto the Super Bowl next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a great run. Matt Derrick will be with us. Please join us as we run through all the detail on the Super Bowl. We look forward to having you. Make sure you hit the text line at 816-357-8781. Get subbed over on Locked On Sports today, and thank you for spending your time with us today. We very much appreciate it. It's been a week, and we're going to start again next week and get after it. So take care of yourselves. Take care of your family. Thanks for being with us now, and we'll talk to you next time.